inch closer to the start of the college football season. As somebody who actually played the game and played at Michigan, and a longtime high school coach, and also a longtime contributor and co-host of the show on the Maize and Blue Review. It's Jim Scarcelli who's on the screen, and it's great to see him on this Wednesday. Scar, people are, as you might imagine, all fired up for the start of the football season. What's going on?
Yeah, everybody's practicing. Lions are practicing. The big college football is practicing. High school football started Monday. It's that time of year, man. I've had friends, people get married, during football. I mean, you don't get married during football season, man. On a Friday night, Saturday night. Are you kidding me? But a lot going on. I was just telling you, Denny, a former Michigan guy, Matt Lentz, is coaching up down the street here. He's coaching offensive line with a friend of mine. They love him. My buddy's the head coach and says he's a flat-out stud. Great coach. I think he played for Les Miles, was his position coach. So
played at Michigan, and he was an offensive lineman.
Yeah, so he's over here, right down the street from me over here in St. Clair Shores, Lakeview High School. So
great stuff. Well, we like to hear that. Well, we got a host of things to talk about. I'm looking. We always like to put comments up and see what the people are at. And CW2 must have lost a bet because he's got the big O there. But we knew J.J. McCarthy was hurt, but it is true. Checking the breaking news, J.J. McCarthy is out for the season with a surgery on a torn meniscus. So
Danny, listen, I got some thoughts on that. Okay. They've got these athletes that are so big, strong, and fast. And then you have great shoes that are just, great footing, and you play on the fast track, the turf. So you've got great shoes, fast athletes playing on a fast track. I bet if he was playing on grass, this wouldn't have happened. I seen a guy, I never forget it, my freshman year, we had a scrimmage up at the stadium, and I can't remember his name, the name of the player, but he was returning a punt. And it was one of the final scrimmages at the stadium, and you could see it on film. It was he's a fast, athletic guy. He made a hard, fast cut as a punt returner, and you can see his fibula, one of his lower, the tibia, just break. No contact, just fast guy on a hard, fast, great footing turf, and he broke his bone. I mean, JJ probably, was a non-contact thing. Nobody touches the quarterback. So anyway, that's just my thought. That's why you got to play on grass, man. You got to at least practice on grass as much as you can.
Well, he did play in the preseason game, so it could have been there. But I don't know if they didn't have necessarily any hit on him, and I don't know if it's field turf.
Okay. I don't know enough about it. I just know that you play on a fast track, you're gonna have some of those kind of injuries with no contact.
Yeah, well, I think a couple of things. One is that if JJ would have come back to play at Michigan, of course, yesterday and then today would have been news of, people would be just, in shambles. I mean, like you would have felt bad. Nobody feels worse than the kid. You always got to remember that. But then the fans, and then all of the his teammates would have felt terrible for him, and then there are a lot of people that, of course you want him to do what's best for him, but a lot of people wanted to see him come back saying, he wasn't ready or whatever else. And then ultimately he got picked number 10. So it's about where you get picked, not necessarily if you're ready, but, so if he would have come back, that would have been a bad decision for him. If, the injury, you don't know, if the injury would have taken place in practice for Michigan. So it was good that he went to Minnesota, and you don't want to ever tear your knee, but guys come back from torn meniscuses like they're like a sprained thumb. They're you see it. It's not like it's an Achilles. So I think the injury is one. It takes a long time, but the other thing is that Patrick Mahomes didn't play at all in his rookie season. He stood there. He did play actually in week 17 when the Chiefs had everything wrapped up, and they had Alex Smith on the sideline. He did play a game there. He looked pretty good. So the point there is that he's just a rookie, and it can be good to sit a season anyways, but it's bad all the other ways around. Getting hurt, and we know it's part of it in football, but it sucks because the guy is he's the greatest in Michigan football history, and seemed like a great kid too. So you wish him all the best.
Yeah, it's a tough deal, and got to move on, man.
There you go. Well, let's move on. Scar here. You don't want to bring everybody down. We are going to talk some position battles. You've had some thoughts on Michigan and who's going to end up starting coming up at the end of this month, the first game. Also, you always have the impact of freshmen. You don't necessarily, you always get these surprises and everything else. We'll see where you're at there. We'll start with a little bit of hype. That is the hype train coming down the track. Before we do that, I get you hyped up on the Maize and Blue review. How about that? Go to michigan.rivals.com, sign up, join the Maize and Blue review today. See us over there on the Den, talking Michigan all day, all night. Recruiting, transfer portal, football, basketball, practice. We're talking about it all over there, and we'd love to see you on the Den. All right, I asked Jerry Dierio, who joins us on Friday, to give me a player to put on the hype train, Scar, and he said, I want to put a position, and he put center, put Greg Crippen and Raheem Anderson. So I asked Scar the same question. Say, Scar, give me a player. Scar says the edge. That's
Danny, I having played and coached, and there's a reason the edge players are the second highest paid players after quarterbacks. You don't contain the quarterback, bad things happen. You got guys that can't play a tight end reach block, bad things happen. You got guys that the flanks, we talk about warfare. Everybody, it's always about securing the flanks. There's certain positions you can kind of hide guys at times as a defensive coach. You can't hide edge guys. You got to rush the quarterback, and you got to have guys that are athletic. You got both these guys have to be athletic enough to drop into coverage a little bit, rush the quarterback, take on 320-pounders, rush them, take on guards that are trying to block them and squeeze on them, take on fullbacks, have the athleticism to run with running backs. And we got two real good ones. Both of these guys, Moore really improved the second half of the year last year. I thought he was outstanding. The last 2-3 games, he was really, really good. And they played him early as a freshman, and I had some doubts because I thought some other guys. But you have in today's football, Danny, you only got the guys for 3 years. This kid's going to be gone probably at the end of this year. To get him back will be tough because he's going to have a really good year. But I thought Moore, his last 2 or 3 games a year was outstanding. He plays the strong side, bigger, little more physical, little bigger kid, not going to drop him as much. But I'm fired up for the way this kid finished the year, the importance of that position. And Josiah Stewart, we watched the Coastal Carolina film, and he looked like a fast, athletic kid. I stood next to him. He's maybe 6'1" kid. He's not the tall, but he's a thick fire hydrant, stout kid. And he really had finished the year really strong. The play of the year against Alabama defensively, I mean, he took that tackle and just stuffed them right into the quarterback. He was the most, we were all pretty good in that front. We had a good scheme, but I am fired up for this position, these two players. Okay, and what I want to see, though, is because they're both gone after this year. So I've talked about this. I want to see TJ Guy. I want to see who's the next guys. Who's gonna get us excited the way I was, watching these two guys last year. I knew we were going to be in great shape this year. So I'm fired up about both these guys, and that position is strong, at least the top two.
Well, it sure seems like TJ Guy, he was the first player that Sharon Moore mentioned yesterday. I think I got that right. They asked who's had a great spring or who's really coming on, and he mentioned Gio El Hadi at guard, and he mentioned TJ Guy on the defensive line, and that carried over from spring, where he also mentioned TJ Guy. So Guy seems to be the one after these two when they're rotating him in, and to the very important position. You're right about that. The Rose Bowl game, that's definitely something that should be mentioned. And I mention it every time somebody, talks about Derek Moore. The first time I saw him when he committed to Michigan, like the next week he played in some all-star game and he had like 4 sacks or something. He was the MVP of the game. And I looked at him afterwards being interviewed and was like, man, this guy looks like he's going to the NFL now. It didn't look like he's going to college out of high school. He just physically looked like he was ready. And
yeah, Danny, I went to spring practice and saw him when he was a freshman, when he was just, he was a high school kid. And I was like, wow. So yeah, he's gifted. They're both gifted, smart, tough team guys. And it's great to hear the coach talk about the third guy. I want to hear about the fourth and fifth guy though. I want to know, that's what I want to hear about. So we're gonna find out here real soon. So those are my hype guys. And Denny, you seem to think that I talk about that position because I played it. No, I talk about that position.
Well,
believe me when I tell you,
yeah,
that position is so you can't hide guys there. You can't roll a coverage away from a corner. You got to protect. You can't. There's certain things you can't do with some positions. You just can't hide that position.
Yeah, well, you know what they say sometimes, Scar, when you're I think both things can be true. I think that is a very important position, and I think you like talking about it because you played it. And so we will put, so Jerry put the center on the hype train. You put the edge position on the hype train. I started out putting Jayshon Barham, having only watched him play one game and not necessarily really, zeroing in on him. He just Michigan played Maryland last year. And then Will Johnson is also so far on the hype train. So this is 4.0, Scar, putting the edge position on there, which is good to see. All right, let's go to, that was the freak list. We'll have to get this back here so we can go on to the next thing, which is position battles. And there's a number of them. Which spot are you going, Scar?
Well, Jerry's going to cover more on the centers, but yeah, it's interesting that appears because the Free Press even wrote about all three guys are in the mix for that position. Guides is also in the mix. Crippen, Anderson, and then the kid that was a former D lineman. So that
John Deese, yeah.
Deese, that position is interesting. They're not settled. So, but it's you just got to take what the coaches are saying. So you're not hearing nothing behind Al Hadi. So they have great faith. We got 2 guards that they have really good. They got solidified in there. Their hitting is solidified in there. But the right tackle is up for grabs. So there's anyway, Percy, Gentry, battling it out there. I really like to hear some third tight end talk. That's what I'd like to hear out of the coaches here coming up. But what's interesting, Denny, is you're hearing the coaches talk about the high school kid, the running back.
Jordan Marshall.
What's interesting about that? Okay, look, you've got Donovan. You've got Mullings. They're gone after this year. And
we know what they bring to the table.
We know what they bring.
Really good backs. Yeah.
They're going to secure the football. And so now the question is, now you've got Hall and they're bringing up Jordan Marshall. So you've got to get guys ready for next year. And at the same time, you don't want to take away reps too much from the older guys. But so Jordan Marshall he mentioned his name. So you're not hearing other running back names. And when the coach mentions this kid's name, along with Hall, Mullings, and Donovan, you got to believe that's what he's thinking right now in my top 4. So if he's not mentioning other names, then those guys have probably something to be concerned with. But again, he's got to get these guys ready for, you want to slowly get Marshall and Hall ready for next year because we're going to lose those too. So it's a good, hopefully, he's talking about him. He must be seeing some things in practice that gives him enthusiasm about Marshall.
Yeah, he mentioned Marshall, and then he came back and made sure that he wanted to put Hall's name in the mix there for the competition. And, it's great, that to have a running back as a true freshman that could get on the field is great. But, to me, and maybe he'll take over and, he'll end up being a star. And I like hearing about it just like everybody else. But, when I want the ball in Donovan Edwards' hands so much, and the same thing with Khalil Mullings and the 1-2 punch that they have. I don't know how many carries the other guys are going to get, but hey, if you get up and you're up by enough, you can have those guys in. You never have enough good running backs. You know what I mean?
Hopefully they can get reps in the Fresno game and then the Arkansas State game. But I don't know that you really want to put in the freshman against Texas. But you got to get the kid reps because you got to get them ready. You got to get both those two young guys ready for the following year.
Yep.
So both Hall and Marshall, you got to get them ready, get them game reps, and that's why those two games are crucial. Those Fresno and Arkansas State.
And sounds like it could be something to keep an eye on. Who's coming out kicking the extra points, and if they have to try a field goal, whether it's going to be the local product Samaha or the transfer from Arkansas State, Zavada. That's a little competition going on as well. Be interesting to see who comes out there.
Let me say this, Denny. Here's names I want to hear, okay? Because we got a little bit of these names came up a little bit in the spring, and when we turn on that Fresno game, these are the guys I want to look at, and I want to hear. Now, he's talked about this Dominic Nichols, freshman. So he's already bringing his name up as a freshman. Is he going to get some clock in front of some other guys? Okay, Kumba was a kid I was impressed with in the spring. He's a big athletic kid. They moved him to the edge. Brandt, we talked about Brandt. Iwanua. And on knew it. There's two African sounding names in there, big guys, and then Pierce.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, Danny, those are names that were brought up in the springs. Those are names that I saw look pretty darn good in the spring game. Okay. And what I'm interested to see is how do they come out of camp? And which of those guys are in the second rotation? Because some of those dudes are going to be back up to Kenny Grant, Mason Graham, and then who's the backup edge guys besides Guy? Who's the other guy they're looking at? So those are names that were brought up, and I want to see where coach is at on these guys.
Yeah. Dom Nichols, we saw in the spring, and he flashed, and so did Cole Sullivan at linebacker, and his name was brought up as well. How these guys get in there, how, they in the rotation, are they in the 3 deep? Can they get in there in the 2 deep? Are they actually going to be out there early? Those are the things that, we'll all have.
Yeah, and then he brought up Sullivan's name. So what I'm all interested in finding out who's the third linebacker. Is it Rolder? Is it Pollard?
Right.
Is it Hurd? And then what is Hood? And then he brings up Sullivan's name. Okay, so what are they thinking? Which of those guys, if he puts a freshman in front of one of those guys, then somebody's looking to transfer. You know what I mean? So
yeah, well, the one thing about transfer, if you're coming out of spring and you don't hear your name, well, that's the time to get a transfer portal. I know you get it. I'm just telling everyone else, about it. So it just because, I get it, what the coaches say, and it means something that, people are like, well, what about Cole Cabana? Yeah, well, what about him? He could be, buried there, but it doesn't mean that he can't go out there on special teams and be a factor there. And then you never know just how things end up working out. So just because your name, you like to hear your name, you like to hear somebody, the coach mentioning you, but it doesn't mean that you can't get in there and contribute and you can make a move or whatever else. Sometimes you're dealing with something injury wise, and that could be a factor. And the coach is not. I'm not saying that Cabana's dealing with something because I don't know that, but I'm just mentioning that as well. I think people know that.
Denny, I'm gonna just mention a name that I've heard through some people I've talked to is this Barnum kid from Maryland. He's everything we talked about. He's a mean, violent, tough kid. He's athletic as heck. He's everything is advertised, and he's respected, and he's a tone setter on that defense. So I talked to some people, and Barnum is the real deal. He plays physical. Just hope he stays healthy. Sometimes these guys that play so darn physical, knock on wood, Denny, they just got to be smart. Hope for the best there.
Yeah, well, Scar, I think a lot of people end up being superstitious, and they do things like knock on wood, or if they're at the poker table, they'll bring a little lucky coin or something. I don't really buy into all of that. I mean, guys get out there. It is a violent game, and sometimes you're going to have these injuries, and it is a part of it, though. And you hope that you have some, if there is some luck, that you have some injury luck. And, Michigan didn't start losing guys last year until Zinter went down, and then the Ohio State game, and then that was a big one for them. And then Benny went down in the Rose Bowl, and that was late in the season. So they were able to overcome those, obviously, because they won the championship. All right, Scar, we've got.
Benny, hang on one second. But in order to have that great year, and I played on some championship teams and coached some championship teams. In order to have that great year, you've got to dodge that, that injury bug. Let me just say this real quick. Something that was in they had the All-America teams and the pre-draft teams, and we got Mason Graham as a potential top 5 pick, All-American Mason Graham, potential top 5 pick. We got Kenny Grant, top 40 pick, all big, some early all Big Ten, some of that. So these two guys, I want to talk about these two guys because this is how you win championships, Denny. I remember watching Mason Graham when they used to put their there was a channel that had his games on over here, California games. But anyway, he was a 3-star kid. Boise State was all he had by the time Michigan came in on him. And Kenny Grant was a 3-star kid. So you say, how do you win championships? You got to have that eye. Now, I don't know which coach it was. Was it was it a recruiting coordinator? Who was it that saw Mason Graham and Kenny Grant that worked for Jim? Was it Jim? Was it who? I don't know who it was. Bottom line, it was somebody that worked with Harbaugh in the Harbaugh deal. Sharon has got to be able to continue the skill, the talent to recognize the Mason Grahams got out there, and that Alabama ain't even looking at him. They weren't looking at Kenny Grant. We found him in Indiana somewhere, somewhere. So that's, you people get all hyped up about, this coach, that coach, whatever. Well, those are skills that we got to find out. And I'm hoping like heck that he has that same kind of eye for that 3-star diamond in the rough. Just want to point it out. Both guys are potential high picks. They're on some All-America teams.
Well, it's a great point. And Graham comes in and starts right away when they were stacked with players at his position, and seeing him come right in, sometimes you're talking about the knack of being able to find someone. You'd think, all right, Graham this year, if he was coming in a little bit under the radar, but he, as soon as he hit the field, and Harbaugh was talking about those guys in the first week of camp. What did he say, Scar, about the two of them? Football.
Yeah, he said Kenny Grant was a gift from the football gods.
Yeah, right.
But then somebody recognized something on film.
Sure.
That Alabama looked at that film, Ohio State looked at that film, USC looked at Mason Graham right in their neighborhood, and they said, no, they're not for us. There was something that wasn't measurable on the big boy checklist. But somebody at Michigan said yes, and that's what a skill that we have to be able to continue, and that's what we're going to find out. We won't know that for a couple of years.
Yeah, I always wonder on the big board how far they had Graham, how far they had Grant, and did they have guys that were 5 stars or even 4 stars that didn't want to come to Michigan and they had to go down the pecking order. I know a lot they talk about it as well is that you have to fit the profile of, not just being a football player, of just kind of the mindset that they're looking for as well. And I wonder, if that was it when they talked with them, did they have these guys, and even though you're talking about whatever, 3 or 4 stars, did they have them way up top because of the profile that they saw and the development? John Beilein was really good at that. John Beilein looked at a guy out of New Hampshire, Michigan fans were like, at first, like, what's he doing? How come you're not recruiting right here in the state of Michigan? John Beilein knew what he was doing. He was recruiting a certain type of player, and he developed a certain kind of player, and it worked for him. Michigan's got a little bit of that going.
Yeah, Denny, believe me, having been in coaches' meetings for 25 years as a high school coach, you look at players, and it's amazing how the different coaches on your staff will have a totally different opinion about a kid, in terms of where he should play, how good is he, or even looking at the opponent's team. Should we run at that guy, or should we avoid, who do we, whatever, you know what I mean? Coaches have drastically different opinions about players. So,
all right, Scott, you want to see what the people have for you?
Yeah, I got a couple other things, but we can go through that real quick. What do you got?
All right, Mark. What's more likely? Orji as good as Shoelace or Rick Leach, or Tuttle
questions.
Warren as good as Wangler, Rudock, Spate? What's more likely?
Yeah, I watched a lot of Ricky Leach, and we ran the quarterback back then, boy, running that option, and it's effective, and it gives you a lot of problems. And Orji, he fits in that mind, that kind of deal, and Tuttle, and comparing him to Wangler, but I'm still going with. I still believe that. I believe that Michigan is tougher to defend with an extended Orji package, and I've said it. I went over it last couple of weeks, and a little bit of in Tuttle or Davis. If you start Orji, is he going to make it 12 games? That's my biggest concern. So anyway, but talking about quarterback real quick, listening to Sharon and the coaches, they sounds like they got a lot of confidence in what's going on with those 3 players.
How about pass protection from Donovan Edwards?
Well, he's got to get better. But I think his weight is going to help him there. Donovan at times got ran over a little bit, pass protecting, but the 10 pounds will be better. It help him out. And, Michael Hart was a damn good, running back coach, teaching pass pro and those things.
Mark's talking tight ends. He wants to know if Klein or Loveland can be deep threats.
Well, you hope. Loveland has, they're 260-pound kids. Loveland's 250, Klein's 260, 65. It's just, can you get those guys up the field? It takes a little longer for a 265-pound guy. So but we've thrown the ball to our tight ends down the middle, not so much, the bomb type routes for receivers, but yes. But yeah, they're both going to be pass game factor. Obviously we know Loveland is, but Klein showed it in the spring game. He will be a factor in the pass game. Then I want to hear about the third one though. Is it Tonelli? That's what I want to hear from the coaches, talk about a third tight end.
Zach Marshall, you got 2 true freshmen. There could be, I guess, Bredesen, if you want to call him a tight end or a fullback. I would tell everybody, and this is not raining on anyone's parade, and I am as high on Orji. I know there's a big variance there. He might not start the first game. He might start all of them. Who knows? But I would not expect Michigan to be unleashing any kind of, taking the top off of Fresno State or throwing bombs. That's not. Alex Orji can be fine as a quarterback and move Michigan up and down the field, and they can score a lot of points. And he can do it against.
Danny, I disagree. Why would you not let it rip? Why would you not?
I haven't seen. I don't think that he can throw the ball down the field.
I think he can. I think he has the strength.
Well, he hasn't done it. He hasn't done it at any time. So
yeah, but if you're defending
around and go ahead.
I'm gonna tell you, if you're defending Michigan and Alex Orji's in the game,
yes,
and the defense knows that they ain't throwing deep with this guy in the game, that's not good for Michigan. So I would say, if he's the guy, he's going to let it rip. They're going to let him throw and make sure the defense plays you honestly. You can't let him just run up on your short routes and defend the run and jam your freaking receiver. You can't let him do that. And so I understand what you're saying, because we haven't seen it from him, but he sure as hell ain't going to be the starter if they don't think he can throw the top off and make a defense play honest.
Well, if you remember, McCarthy couldn't complete a deep pass until the Ohio State game in his first year starting. So it doesn't really mean that you can't be an effective quarterback. But if you're thinking about him, dropping dimes down the field and sending the tight end, I'm just telling people, don't get your hopes up when it comes down to that.
It wasn't. Yeah, but we at least attempted it with JJ. It wasn't. I know he had trouble doing it, but we attempted it, so they had to honor it. You can't just scrap it. So even though JJ had trouble, at times, we still ran it. So that's my point. You got to make a defense honor, the deep, the short, all the different pass routes. You can't let them off the hook, Danny.
I know you got to be able to do everything, and that's what makes you end up with the position. There's so many things that go into it, but I haven't seen it. Even just the way that he throws the ball, I don't see him being able to be this quarterback that's unleashing any passes down the field. And I would suspect and I would predict that you're not going to see any of that. But that doesn't mean Michigan.
I'll bet you a hamburger he will throw a bomb within the first 3 football games. I'll bet you a hamburger right now. Alex Orji will throw a bomb to one of our split receivers.
Well, you're talking about completing it?
I don't know if he's going to complete it, but they're going to definitely – it's in the playbook when he's in there. Oh, you know what? I'll bet you he completes it too.
Well, now I'll take that bet. I'll take that bet.
Because you sure as hell can't play quarterback anywhere if the defense isn't honoring the ability to throw deep.
Shea Patterson started for 2 years, and he couldn't throw the ball down the
field. But we attempted it. It was in the playbook.
Yeah, he attempted it, but by the time, even in his last game against Alabama, everybody's like, go ahead, attempt it. We're not worried about it. I mean, it's one thing to I would say that you still have to put a player out there, but when they're sitting out there during the week and they're all in those defensive rooms that you've been in, Scar, yourself, whether you're up in front or whether you're sitting down in the seat, when they're up there talking about it, when they're talking about number 10, they're not talking about, we really have to worry about keeping our safeties back, because they're not talking about that. They're talking
we don't know that yet. The kid hasn't played a lot. He hasn't played a lot. Let's see what they do this year. He had his little package. Let me tell you, we got all these receivers we recruited. You think they're just going to run slants and outcuts and bubbles and all this?
That's what I think they're going to do.
We're going to throw the football.
Drag the tight end. I don't think so. All right. Well, let's see. Let's do it. And sometimes, you
and to put everybody at ease again, we won a Big Ten championship with Cade McNamara. Okay, so we got 3 guys there that are going to give us that same kind of performance, I believe.
Yeah, and I would say that Cade McNamara is a way better downfield passer than Alex Orji. That's what I would guess.
Okay, yeah, he has no question there, but again, Davis Warren and Tuttle, I don't know where they are throwing the deep ball, but we'll see.
All right, here's a question from Ferris. Grant and Graham and Johnson, do they take all the attention so Barham can do his thing and become a superstar?
Well, listen, we do so many things on defense. We don't just sit and play vanilla stuff. And but a big part of our defense is to protect linebackers. We play a 1 technique and a 3 technique. And if you understand both those positions, we do play some head up nose at times too. And we'll play 5 techniques where they're over the tackles and linebackers are not protected. But we play a whole lot of a 3 technique and a 1 technique. And both those positions are playing into guards to keep linebackers free. So that's just a philosophy, I think, of what we do. So, yes, we protect linebackers so they can roam and make tackles.
All right, a couple quick hitters here. Juju mentioning that Kirk Campbell said he is opening up the playbook. Tyler Morris said the same thing in his interview. What's that mean to you, opening up the playbook, Scott?
I don't know what it means. I don't know what that means. If Michigan's done a hell of a lot, if I'm Texas and I look at what Michigan did last year and I got 15 games, there's a lot of stuff I got to deal with.
Yeah.
I got Orji package. I got 7 offensive linemen. I got empty. I got a lot of different stuff. The power, the zones, the bubbles, all the for shifting, all the formations, all the stuff. Opening up the playbook, there's plenty there that Michigan did in 15 games that is enough headaches for them to have to work on. All the shifting we've done against Penn State. And, you don't just look at one year. You got to look at some of the stuff the guy did, in past years too. So you got to get – anyway, opening the playbook can mean a lot of things. It can be, hey, we're going to have 8 offensive linemen. I don't know what the hell that means. We're going to run straight T. We're going to run stack I. That was Jack Harbaugh's formation, stack I. Jim ran it a couple times. But I don't know. That's what, Denny, that's the kind of statement offensive coaches make. And Coach Mueller used to call it chasing ghosts. You can't worry about stuff. You can't worry about every single play a team has ever ran as a defensive player, defensive coach. I mean, if we're looking at Texas, Wink can't worry about every single play that Sarkisian's ran in the last couple of years at Texas. Every trick play, that's when you get into chasing ghosts, and then you forget about stopping the best stuff. So that statement by Campbell is it can be a curveball. It can mean absolutely nothing. It can mean we're going to run less stuff and more, and we're going to perfect our basic stuff even more. I don't know what it means. It's a curveball. Psychology.
Well, you're going to have a first-time starter, whoever it is, at quarterback. So opening up the playbook even more with a first-time starter, I would say that probably is just coach speak. And if it's Alex Orji, they're going to be running the ball even more than they did last year. So I don't think they're going to be opening up any playbook. They're going to be opening up a different chapter to a playbook. They'll be opening up something different there, but they're not opening it up. Opening it up makes you think like they're going to be throwing the ball all over the place, which if it's number 10, again, I would question that. But I say all of that, and it was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and I heard Josh Gaddis, and I'm watching him, and Josh Gaddis was asked about the same thing heading into the season, and Gaddis said, what we're going to do is concentrate on running the football. And I started rolling my eyes. I said, I've listened to Michigan football coaches for 50 years just talk about, we're just going to run the football. But then, the follow-up was something like, Coach, we always hear that. And Gaddis said, no, that's what we're doing. We're going to run the football more. And I think people were groaning like, you guys can't. And it ended up being, it's still their identity now. They did it against Washington, and it's continued on. Gaddis was right.
Yeah, Danny, this can mean a lot of things, but it can mean that we've found more ways to run the football, or maybe some more things off of our best stuff, some run plays off of our best stuff, little tweaks. It can mean maybe some more high percentage, low percentage passing, short passing stuff. It can mean a lot of things. Who gets more passing yards, the Don or Mullings? I would say Donovan, because he's just been shown that he's a bigger threat in the pass game. But it would be great if we could throw the ball to Mullings.
they threw him one. Was it against Alabama or Ohio State? It was kind of a surprise that they threw him. Well, maybe it was against Washington, even in the championship game.
Yeah. So, Denny, what else do I have? I listen to Ryan Day on the Big Ten Network, and they're just blowing Ohio State, Ryan Day, the greatest talent. I love it. It's like 1969, man. They're national champs or bust, right? They got the greatest talent ever assembled.
That's true.
That's what they had in 69 when they came to the big house and Schembechler shut them down. So they're talking about Ohio State, all this talent, the big edge guys, these two great running backs, all this, the great freak receiver and all this defense, best defense, And I'm like, I'm not seeing it, man. They got blown out in a bowl game. They laid down. I get it. Some of but I look at our top 50 players against their top 50 players. Let's go. Because that's what it's going to come down to. By the time we get to game 12, our top 50 against their 50, I think we can match up with them. Our coaches against theirs. Anyway, I'm listening to Ryan Day, and they're going on and on about him. And Chip's going to run the football, Danny. He's going to want to run the football. And they're doing it. That guy was brought there to beat Michigan, to help his defense. They're going to run the football, and they're get his defense ready to stop the stuff we do. But anyway.
Yeah, if I could jump in there on Ohio State, I hear what you're saying. I do think that they have just great talent everywhere, but they've got 2 question marks, and one of them's on the offensive line, and the other one's at quarterback. Those are 2 really big question marks to have. You can have great talent everywhere out there, but if you're having trouble up front and you're not sure, even if he's a game manager, if you have, the Will Howard, or if you think it's going to be a true freshman with all this assembled talent over there in Sagan, those kind of things can go sideways when you're championship or bust. Michigan was championship or bust, but they were solid on both sides. They didn't have any weaknesses. Nobody was saying, "Oh, Michigan's got a weakness." No, people looked at the team and said, "This team's stacked."
Yeah, they're gonna run the ball more with Chip. They're going to run their quarterback more with Chip. They're going to be a lot of the stuff he did at Oregon running, because that's why they brought this kid in. He's a dual threat guy, and will he be there game 12? That's the thing with that quarterback. That'd be great if our guy turns into Cam Newton. Scar, I made a origami OSU paper champion of 2024 offseason paper trophy for the Buckeye fans. I'm working on folding and. So anyway, he made a paper championship for the Buckeyes, and you could throw it in the garbage here real soon. But yeah, everybody's anointing him, man, with all this. I'm not over. I told you, I talked about our 2 edge guys, Moore and Stewart. I'll take those 2 guys above Sawyer and Ulamalu any day of the week.
JTT, yeah,
whatever.
Yeah, hey.
I'm not buying that at all, man. I'm not. Listen, they ain't soft, Rob. They ain't soft, but we got players too, man. And everybody wants to stroke them over there. I ain't seeing it. Denny, I want to talk about the kickoff, the NFL kickoff. I'd like to see college do it. I would. I think it's a great concept. It's going to prevent some injuries. It's going to bring the kickoff back into play. You're going to have to, but the high speed collisions are minimized. So I like it. Denny, real quick story. I was on every special team before I was a starter my junior year. And I remember we played Minnesota and we hung like 7 points, whatever it was. So those are all kickoffs. You got to cover kicks. And back in the day, they had we had the wedge. You got to go through the wedge. They don't have they outlawed the wedge in college football, but there's still some serious collisions. You get a guy, a highly recruited, fast, 230-pound athlete running 60 yards, and another highly recruited 240-pounder, meeting them after a 60-yard run. Those are serious collisions. So I am all on board with the pro football doing it. I love it. I think it's going to be a good competitive play. The kickoff, they're not kicking them in the end zone, and players are protected a little bit. It's kind of like a punt, and which I like. I like it though. It's just saving players a little bit.
Well, let me ask you a question. It also is in the NFL, but it could easily apply to college and high school. Jonathan Taylor wore the Guardian, looked like a kind of a big swim cap overneath for protection for concussions. What would you think if that was mandated in college football? It doesn't have the pure look of the Michigan helmet. You've seen it. You know what it looks like, a little tent over the helmet. What would you think if that was put in for
anything that protects? If it protects players and it's,
okay, you say that, and I agree with you. I would say that if it's a level of protection and they really do think it's going to help minimize concussions, kickoffs, go with the Guardian caps as well. Let me take it a step further. You see when these guys are just in practice, they're wearing the padded helmets. And I've seen now that they have made it where you can have your logo on it, everything else. Would you go that far? High school, I don't know what the cost is of those. Maybe that would be something, but why aren't they wearing those? They don't look as cool. That's for sure. And it might be the Guardian cap first, but why not go to the full pillow?
Yeah, Danny, I'm all on board with protected players and those kind of things. Yeah, you would get no pushback from me. Bo made it mandatory for front seven on defense to wear them braces way back in the 80s.
Yeah.
The knee braces.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't, to protect players, and we had to wear it. I think the offensive linemen wore them in the games too. But anyway, I'm all about that stuff. I'll tell you what else is going on, Denny, that is good news for Michigan. I see Georgia Tech. Here's next week. Yeah, we got Georgia Tech up playing Florida State. Georgia Tech's got a good coach. This is some good news for the Big Ten. Georgia Tech signed a 5-star kid from the state of Georgia.
I saw that. Yeah.
That's important. When Georgia Tech can start getting kids from Georgia. You see, they got a monopoly down there. Georgia has a monopoly in Georgia, and Alabama has a monopoly in Alabama. You want Auburn to start getting kids. You want Georgia Tech to start getting kids. We got to deal with Michigan State and battle with them at times to get a kid. So anyway, that stuff is good for it. Balance of power, Danny. You heard me talk about balance of power. It hurts them. It hurts Georgia when Georgia Tech is better. So I wanted to point that out. What we need is Cincinnati to actually get something going where they can take a kid from Ohio State every now and then that Ohio State offers. If that's some kid that wants to stay home, says, I'm going to Cincy instead of play for the Buckeyes. It sounds crazy, but that would definitely help Michigan.
It doesn't sound crazy, and with NIL, they can't go out and spend the kind of money that Ohio State is, but could you target one or two players that almost always would go to Ohio State?
There you go.
Somebody like Cincinnati, and you can spread the wealth a little bit out that way. We've seen a little bit of that, but yeah, I'm with you on that. You would figure the way that Michigan's had to go. They don't have as big a pool because of the 5 stars that they've elected to. Even now, with how the game is played, Michigan is not looking at the 5 stars. They're looking at the next cut of players because of cost.
Yeah. I'll tell you, it was something that was encouraging. I heard Gio El-Hadi talk about all the offensive linemen passed their conditioning test, and he was fired up about that. And it sounds like they have a real brotherhood there. And, I just remember the conditioning test in my day.
Give me an idea of what the conditioning test is.
Back in I don't know what it is now. Okay. In my day, we had you had a 1.5 mile time, and the strength coach gave everybody a different time based on their weight, their height, whatever their size. You can't have a 300-pound lineman make the same time as a 190-pound defensive back. So
makes sense.
You had a 1.5 mile time you had to pass. You had to run 10 40s. We had a sprint test. You ran a 40 and you had 30 seconds rest, and you had to run all 10 So if you ran a 4.6, you had to run all 10 of them under 5.1. It was a half-second differential. You follow me? So you had to make all 10 under. It would have been 5.1 if you ran a 4.6 with 30 seconds. So you had a sprint test. You had a 1.5-mile test, and then you had a bench test. And I'm thinking those were the 3 ones we had. I don't know what I would bet that their strength coach, their test now is a little more elaborate. There's more to it. But I just thought that was cool. Gio commented on it that all the offensive linemen passed their conditioning test. So those things are important.
Well, I have to give a nod to Michigan. I was watching last week. Jeopardy came on, and it was the Tournament of Champions, which means the questions are going to be more difficult. And so it comes on, and there are 3 or 4 of us in the family that are watching it. And I was kind of bragging, like, I usually do pretty good. Tournament of Champions, I'll be lucky to get 1 or 2. But what was impressive is that of the category, I think, was something business terms, which I would not have think that I would be able to get any. But the guy goes down. I hate it when they start at the bottom, Scar. I like them. They go, 200, 400, nice and easy, kind of warms it in. But that's the way they do it now. The tough guys go down at the bottom, throws everybody off. It works. It's effective. Ken Jennings started that. But they go to like the, $1,000 question. And the business thing, the term is, what's the acronym CPI stand for? And I rang right in, key performance indicator. I knew it because that's what Michigan had talked about so much the year before. So it had nothing to do with me knowing anything about business. I did Michigan football. I was like, key performance indicator. And everybody looked at me, and I got the question. Everybody was impressed with my business.
Okay, so how do they use that term for a specific player in evaluating a player? Does a player get a grade?
They have key performance indicators on every player. They track it every day. And Orji was better than everyone. Every key perform, whatever it is, whatever his 40 time is, and anything that they're doing lifting, I think they want to do whatever it is, 1% better, an extra rep. Those are their CPIs. They kept talking about.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with practice. It's straight from a strength and conditioning standpoint.
Yeah. That's right. They're CPIs. But Harbaugh talked about it so much, and that here it is. It was helping me out in Jeopardy, and get me a little clout. Around the family.
I thought this was interesting. I read what the players say. What the players say, if you dissect it, it can tell you a lot about what's going on with the team. But Quentin Johnson said something good about all 3 quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And he indicated, though, when Alex is in the game, it's a whole nother deal. You got to deal with all the run stuff that Alex does. Here's a defensive player telling you that he understands when Alex is in the game, they run the football with them, and there's a lot of things that you have to deal with. And he talked about when Tuttle's in the game or when Davis Warren's in the game. So I think, it just sells the argument that a little bit of both, 2 of those guys is much more difficult to defend. So I like it, and because Q has to defend him every day in practice, and he knows what's hard to defend.
And for people that are watching or listening to this pod, first you go back in the summer, Scar, you have indicated all along, you feel like there is going to be an extended Orji package, which also means you're going to see Jack Tuttle and I don't know about or that would be 3, or you're either going to see Tuttle Orji or Warren Orji against Fresno State in the first half. You're going to see.
That's what I think. Yeah.
Right.
Then ask yourself this question: Who was our backup quarterback game 1 last year?
Tuttle. Jack Tuttle was.
Okay, so there you go. That's why that's a lot of my theory as to why I'm continuing to believe that's the guy that unless something's going on with we don't know if the kid why he wasn't in spring ball, whatever he had. There was speculation about a lot of things, surgery.
Right.
Who knows?
There is a lot of speculation about his arm. Yeah,
he was the backup quarterback last year. So
correct.
What did he do to lose that?
He got hurt.
I know. Okay, but anyway, I just have they just got good faith in it. Sharon sounds confident and fired up about it. And Sharon has done everything that I would have wanted from our head football coach to this point. In terms of
and
players,
I think,
so I'm
more
going to keep the faith, Denny, that he's going to make the right decision, and that they did make the right decision with quarterback by not going out and getting somebody. I'm just going to keep the faith.
Yeah, and what I've seen from Sharon Moore, he's no shrinking violet, and he's not worried about what happened back, in the 70s. He's not worried about, the media, ripping him because he thinks, that, playing two quarterbacks, Sharon Moore will call a blind jump pass against Ohio State in the fourth quarter in Columbus. Sharon Moore will, he's ready to. He's bringing a 6-shooter out and he's unloading it. You like an aggressive, people like Dan Campbell because he's ready to roll the dice and he's ready to get after it. Sharon Moore went for it 3 times on fourth down when he was the head coach last year against Ohio State. He's going to do it again. So he's going to go for it. If you don't like the gambling or gadget plays, then you're not going to like Michigan football under Sharon Moore. He knows his personnel, and you always say it all the time with the tight ends out there. You don't know whether it's going to be a run or pass. And Moore, he's dialing up different plays, and he's trying to keep the defense guessing. So,
and Denny, listen, I've said this. The total package of headaches that our offense gives defenses is what's made us so effective these last 3 years. 7 offensive linemen. Okay, now Orji package. Okay, now empty. Okay, now, whatever. You follow me? Those are drastically different offensive schemes that people have to deal with. So I think players already know, Scar. Did you know who were the best? Oh, yeah,
let me stop you there, Scar, for people that are listening on the podcast. Mark is asking you a question back when you played. The players know who the best quarterback is. The players know who should be the quarterback. That's the question to you from Mark.
I think when in general, you can tell the standout players, but there are sometimes, in some cases, not just quarterback, but it can be guard, line, whatever, a lot of different positions where it's really, really close. But the players definitely are looking at the film every single day in practice. You see it just like the coaches do. Yep. Coaches are looking at everything. Listen, when you play defense, and I was in them rooms with Coach McCarthy, Coach Moeller, that, and there's 50 guys in that defensive meeting room. Every strength and weakness of every single player that is in that meeting room with you. Every player knows it. You see it on film. You see this guy getting ripped for doing this, or this guy getting a pat on the back for doing this. So you see it every day. The players know it. They see it. So the same thing on offense. You're seeing the guys that are blocking and who's getting their butt kicked or this, that, or whatever. So as far as quarterback play, I got to believe that the players are seeing and saying, just like Quentin talked about, what kind of headaches each player gives them. But he mentioned that they both give them different kind of problems, which it sells my argument. But yes, to answer your question, players sure as hell see it every day in practice too.
It goes against your argument, but playing 2 quarterbacks, it's the one thing about quarterback and offensive line in general. When you're the starter, you're not rotating guys in there, but that's the same thing with the offensive line. But your argument is that they will have a package, even an extended package.
Gives you more headache. Danny, when I knew my players were real quick, finish up here. When my players were really getting smart, and we would put on film of the opponent, they would be like, "Man, this kid's terrible. This guy's soft. This guy," because they understand coaching. Then they start to learn. They're like, wow, this, they know good technique when they see it. They know poor effort when they see it. They know all those things because they're watching it. They're getting coached.
All right, final thing for me, Scar. You mentioned, so you're picking Georgia Tech to upset Florida State?
Well, no, somebody mentioned that. I just think the
Oh,
guy's
okay.
a good coach.
You're just excited for the season to start.
I,
Okay.
I would like to see them get. We listen, Denny. Anything that takes the players from the top people in the South helps Michigan.
Okay.
We want more parity down there in the SEC. We don't want Florida State dominating in the ACC. We don't want Georgia dominating all the recruiting. Make them lose some kids to some of them other guys and get some parity down there. That way it makes it easier for us.
So you're rooting for Georgia Tech and Ole Miss. They're in this year,
That's right? We want anybody that's going to recruit guys and take them away from Alabama and Georgia.
Go Mississippi State.
There you go. So, yeah, Denny, we're fired up. We're counting it down, and things are looking good.
All right, we're trying to get to that 5,000. We'll throw a big party when that happens. Subscribers, I saw somebody was in there saying that they were subscribing. So get that done. We're so close. If you're somebody that's watching this or listening to it, and if you just listen to the podcast, you got to say, man, I got to subscribe to that YouTube channel to get that 5K because we're ready to have that party. So great job, Scar. Can't wait to talk with you next week. We'll look for some predictions. I know that you do a great job with handicapping some games. We'll have you handicap the season, and we'll have you make some predictions as well next week. We'll put your feet to the fire.
Yeah, I got some winners. I told you I got one winner, Denny. I think, listen, I love the Lions. 10.5 wins is a lot, Denny. It's a lot. I think under. 10. They go 10-7. You still win your bet, Denny. 10-7. You still win your bet. So I like the under on the Lions. So 10.5. Anyway, go blue.
There he is, Jim Scarcelli. Likes the Lions, but likes the under. Okay.